Alright, here's how my crazy day started. I wake up super late, which makes no sense because my room's packed with, like, 100 clocks. I have no idea how I slept through that. I can barely remember last night, and I'm still in yesterday's clothes. Must have crashed out hard. It took Huey Lewis and the news to wake me up. Gotta admit, that song is killer. I rushed downstairs, and my lazy siblings, or maybe it was just mom, honestly, I don't remember, are sitting at the table. Someone says my truck got wrecked. Turns out it was that fat jerk Biff. He crashed it and now he's outside blaming my dad for it. And dad? He just stands there, taking it while Biff smacks him around, like usual. That truck was supposed to be my ticket to a camping trip with Jennifer this weekend, but I guess that's out. So, I head to school on my skateboard, grabbing onto the backs of random cars to speed things up. When I get there, I tell Jennifer about the truck, and she's really understanding about it. But then, out of nowhere, my teacher, that guy who always gives me a hard time, grabs me by the ear and starts calling me McFly, like I'm my dad or something. It's pretty humiliating. After that, I will try out for the school music contest. I'm psyched until I see Huey Lewis himself as one of the judges. I play my heart out, but he just shakes his head and tells me I'm too loud. Not exactly my day, huh? Then I remember, Doc called this morning, told me to stop by his place after school. So, I head over, and he shows me this insane invention, a time machine. He's got this whole model set up, explaining that the car has to hit 88 miles per hour to travel through time. And he wants me to film the first test tonight at the mall parking lot. So yeah, that's how my day started. And little did I know, meeting him there at midnight was only the beginning of the craziest adventure of my life.
Hey there, I'm a medical student, and let me tell you about my first day in the operating room. You know, I always thought it would be like the movies, dramatic, intense, with surgeons making life or death decisions in split seconds. I imagined myself standing there heroically, the team looking at me and saying, "You're ready to be a surgeon." But nope, reality was way less dramatic than that. When I walked into the operating room, the first thing that hit me wasn't the feeling of awe or excitement, but just how normal everything felt. I thought there'd be this grand moment when the surgeon would turn, hand me a scalpel, and say, "This is your moment." Instead, all I got was a quick nod, "You can stand over there, just don't get in the way," and then everyone got back to their work. No applause. No slow motion shot of me making my first incision. Just me, standing awkwardly in the corner, trying not to look like a complete rookie. And then there was the body on the table. I had this image in my head of a pristine, almost artistic specimen, like something you'd see in medical textbooks. But no, this was just a regular human body. It wasn't shiny or perfect. It was just a body. And for a second, I thought, is this really what I signed up for? I mean, no drama, no glamorous moments. Just the quiet reality of what surgery really is. Then came the hand scrubbing. Oh, the hand scrubbing. I thought it would be like any normal hand wash, but there's a whole routine to it. You have to scrub every inch of your hands, your wrists, even your nails, for what feels like an eternity. And as I'm scrubbing away, I'm looking at everyone else and thinking, how are they doing this so easily? Meanwhile, I'm just standing there, practically hyperventilating over whether I missed a spot. I mean, it's just hand washing, right? But when you're in an OR, it feels like you're preparing for a battle. And don't even get me started on the gloves. First time I tried to put those on, I felt like I was trying to shove my hands into two rubber bands. I swear, I almost tore them. I struggled for what felt like an eternity, but somehow, I managed to get them on without looking like a total idiot. Finally, surgery began. The surgeons were all business, focused and efficient, while I just stood there, trying not to trip over my own feet. They were rattling off medical terms I only half understood, like some secret code, and I was just doing my best to keep up. My role? Handing them tools. Now, you'd think that would be easy, right? But nope, every time I reached for something, I had this nagging fear that I was about to hand them the wrong thing. "Please don't let me mess this up," was running through my head over and over again. I felt like I was a background character in a TV show, just hoping no one would notice me or the ridiculous mistakes I was about to make. As the surgery went on, I realized something important. This wasn't about drama or making a huge impact. It was about precision. It was about focus. The surgeons didn't need to be the heroes you see in movies. They were calm, steady, and just getting the job done. No big speeches, no flair. Just a lot of quiet, meticulous work. At the end of the day, when the surgery was finished and the patient was taken to recovery, I stood there for a moment, still unsure of what exactly I'd contributed. Honestly, all I did was stand in the corner, hold some tools, and try not to mess things up. I didn't save anyone's life. I didn't make any miraculous decisions. But hey, I didn't get in anyone's way either, so I guess that's a win. Looking back, I realized surgery isn't all about cutting people open in some dramatic fashion. It's about concentration, precision, and a whole lot of quiet teamwork. And maybe that's the real magic of it all. It's not the grand gestures you see in movies, but the small, steady moments that make a real difference. So yeah, that was my first day in the operating room. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't heroic. But it was real. And at the end of the day, that's what matters. Just a medical student trying not to screw up in the middle of the most important moments of someone's life. Hello everyone. Today I want to share a few interesting, humorous, and even a bit strange stories from my work here at the airport security checkpoint. As you know, our job can be quite intense, but sometimes the situations we encounter bring about some funny moments that I'll never forget. Let me start with a story about a luggage inspection that I'll never forget. One day, a man walked through the security checkpoint carrying a heavy-looking backpack. He seemed in a hurry, but I had to do my job, so I placed his bag on the conveyor belt for scanning. The X-ray machine showed a rather strange image. Inside the bag was a hand mixer. I was curious, so I decided to open the bag. And sure enough, it was a hand mixer, nothing too out of the ordinary, except that this particular mixer had a huge sticker on it that read "Caution, extremely dangerous." Now, mind you, there was nothing dangerous about the mixer, but the sticker was a bit of an overkill. The man seemed embarrassed when I asked him about it, saying he was bringing it as a gift for his wife, who loves baking. I couldn't help but chuckle, but I still had to check it thoroughly. Another time, I was working a shift when a woman came through carrying a very large suitcase. It looked like she had packed everything she owned for a weekend getaway. After the usual checks, we saw something odd on the scanner, what appeared to be a large stuffed animal. At first, I thought it was just a toy, but then I saw the eyes. They were blinking. The woman noticed my puzzled look and smiled, explaining that it was a robotic dog she had just bought to surprise her kids. I laughed, imagining how her kids would react to a robot dog appearing out of nowhere. But still, I had to ask her to take it out and show it to me. It wasn't anything illegal, just a very, very advanced toy. Sometimes, the funnier moments don't even involve the luggage, but the people themselves. For example, I remember one day when a passenger, clearly in a hurry, tried to rush through the scanner with an oversized backpack. As soon as the alarm went off, he froze. He looked so panicked, and we all knew he was about to make a run for it. But before he could even take a step, his pants started falling down, he'd forgotten to buckle his belt, and in the chaos, it slipped right off. The entire line of passengers couldn't help but burst out laughing. He turned bright red and immediately adjusted his pants, but we couldn't stop laughing for a good while after that. But not all stories are so lighthearted. Sometimes, things can get a little more intense. For instance, there was a time when a passenger tried to bring through a suspicious-looking item that turned out to be a self-defense tool. It wasn't anything illegal, but it was still something not allowed on the plane. The man was very insistent, saying he didn't know the rules, but after explaining the situation calmly, he understood. He apologized, and we just went ahead with the regular process. However, at the end of the day, These little moments remind me of why I enjoy working here. It's not just about checking bags or making sure everything is safe. It's also about keeping things light and making people smile, because, as hectic as the job can be, a little humor goes a long way in making the day easier for everyone. So, the next time you're flying, remember, there's always more going on behind the scenes than you might think. And maybe, just maybe, you'll be the one to bring in the next unusual item for us to inspect. Keep your bags light and your belts buckled, and I'll see you at the checkpoint.
The scene starts with her sitting at a desk, focused, with a computer in front of her and papers scattered around. Her headphones are on, and she begins to speak into the microphone. Her voice is calm but engaging. "All right, everyone, let's settle in. I've got a story for you that might sound a little odd, but trust me, it's definitely worth hearing. Picture this. It's a normal day at the office, or so it seems. Just another afternoon, right? But then, well, let me tell you what happened. It all started in a small, somewhat old research office. We were a pretty quiet team, just the usual faces, working late like always. Papers, files, and our computers all lined up in a neat, orderly fashion until something unexpected happened. The system went down. Just like that, out of nowhere. At first, we thought it was a minor glitch, a little hiccup. No big deal, right? I mean, these things happen, especially when you're dealing with tech that's been in use for years. But soon, it became clear that this was more than just a hiccup. The system crashed completely. Emails went missing, data was scrambled, and the whole office descended into chaos. We tried to fix it ourselves at first, panicking as we watched the clock tick by. Every attempt to recover the files was in vain, and we couldn't even get the network to reconnect. I remember looking around, seeing everyone rushing from one desk to another, desperate to find any solution. There was the sound of frantic typing, people yelling over the cubicle walls, and the general feeling of something slipping out of control. I sat there at my desk, frozen for a moment, unsure of what to do. How do you fix something this big when you don't even understand why it happened? People were losing their minds, but I tried to stay calm. I grabbed my phone, called the IT department, and, of course, they were completely overwhelmed. They had no idea what was going on either. "We'll get back to you as soon as we can," they said. That was the last thing I wanted to hear. It felt like everything we'd worked for, everything we'd built, was crumbling right in front of us. Time started moving slower. Hours passed, or maybe it was just minutes, but it felt like forever. By this point, we had all gathered in the break room, trying to figure out what happened. No one knew. It was just one of those things. No explanation, no reason, just a disaster. People were speculating wildly, blaming everything from the server upgrades to faulty wiring. And, of course, the one thing that became the scapegoat, the new software update. But then, something strange happened. As I sat there listening to all the theories, I noticed that the situation started to shift. It wasn't just about fixing the problem anymore. It was about finding out how this could have happened, and who was responsible. You know, that moment when the panic subsides, and curiosity takes over? We decided to trace it back, to track every action taken in the system leading up to the crash. And here's the twist, it wasn't any one thing that caused the disaster. It was a combination of a lot of little things, a chain reaction. A forgotten password. A server that hadn't been updated in months. A file that never synced properly. It all piled up, and boom. A system failure. It was like the perfect storm of technology errors. It felt almost like something out of a movie, like we were in a disaster scenario, trying to save the day with nothing but our wits and determination. It was chaotic, but it was also kind of exhilarating, if I'm being honest. In the end, we fixed it. We didn't restore everything, of course. Some files were lost for good. But we learned a valuable lesson: don't take anything for granted. Not your system, not your passwords, and certainly not your ability to handle a crisis. It's funny how quickly things can spiral out of control when the foundation is weak. I guess that's the moral of the story. If there is one, everything is connected. A small oversight can lead to big problems, but if you have the right team and a bit of persistence, you can get through it. Just make sure to stay calm, even when everything seems to be falling apart. She leans back in her chair, taking a small pause before finishing the story. Anyway, that's my story. It might not be a grand tale, but it's one I won't forget anytime soon. And, honestly, it's one I think we could all learn from. Now, back to work, right? She smiles softly, takes off her headphones, and gets back to her tasks, but not before sharing a glance with the people around her, who are all smiling at the end of the story.
Alright, let me tell you about the worst experience I had as a babysitter. Now, I know what you're thinking, how bad could it really be, right? Well, picture this, 2 twin boys and a toddler girl who's just starting potty training. When the parents drop them off, the kids are all smiles, everything seems perfectly fine. But let me tell you, it was a disaster waiting to happen. So, the moment the parents left, it was like the kids switched to a different mode. The boys were practically bouncing off the walls, running around the house, shouting and whooping like they were at a circus. I tried to keep them calm by suggesting we build something with Legos. You know, the usual strategy to get them to focus on something other than the chaos in their heads. But, of course, that didn't last long. Meanwhile, I had to deal with the little girl. She was sitting on her potty, trying her best to go, but having no luck. Of course, just as I'm trying to calm her down, I hear the boys screaming at the top of their lungs. Naturally, I leave the girl alone, big mistake, and rush to see what's going on. I walk into the boys' room, and one of them is standing on the bed, urinating at the other like it's some sort of competition. And, of course, the pee is everywhere, on the walls, on the carpet, on the bed, and somehow, all over them. I'm standing there thinking, this is not happening. I tell them, change your clothes and strip, now. But they're just laughing and running around, making it a game. Meanwhile, the little girl, who's now completely naked, drags her potty into the kitchen, singing at the top of her lungs about how she pooped. She wants me to come look, because, you know, every toddler's dream is for someone to check out their poop. At this point, I'm on the verge of losing it. But wait, it gets better. One of the boys runs through the kitchen, accidentally knocks over the potty, and, yup, you can guess where this is going. Poop and pee everywhere. I honestly wanted to cry, but I managed to hold it together. I cleaned up what I could, but let me tell you, it was tough when it's not even your house and you have no idea where the cleaning supplies are. When the parents finally came home, they didn't apologize for the mess or the chaos, and of course, no extra tip for my efforts. It was the first and last time I ever babysat for those parents. And, you know what? I'm proud of my 17-year-old self for not quitting on the spot. It was just pee and poop, no big deal, right? But honestly, it was a lesson in patience, and a reminder that some people really shouldn't have kids. Now, after that, I thought I'd learn my lesson, but no! The universe had more in store for me. I get called by another family. They had 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. I figured, how bad can it be? Spoiler alert, bad. The boys were absolute terrors. One of them decided to pee right in the middle of the living room. He's potty trained, mind you, so this was totally a choice. I freaked out, cleaned it up, and sent him to his room. The other boy followed, and they both locked themselves in their room, turning it into some kind of fortress. Meanwhile, the little girl, unbeknownst to me, had made a huge mess downstairs, and I had to find her before things got even worse. By the time the parents got home, I was practically in tears, and guess what? They apologized, but only because they had to. They were hoping I'd come back, but no. No way in hell. Being a babysitter definitely has its moments. Sometimes, I'm the superhero, but more often than not, I'm just the cleanup crew, trying to keep my sanity intact. Would I do it again? Maybe, if I get paid in advance. As the evening went on, things were going smoothly, or so I thought. The 7-year-old was playing nicely with his cousin, and I was relieved to be having a calm night for once. That peace didn't last long. Soon, he got it in his head that he didn't need to listen to anything I said. He kept running to the fridge and taking out whatever he wanted. When I asked him to put it back, he told me he didn't have to listen to me, that only his parents could tell him what to do. Then, his cousin joined in on the rebellion. They both started grabbing snacks, juice boxes, and anything they could get their hands on, eating and spilling them all over the kitchen. I managed to corral them back into the living room, but they decided it was more fun to start a wrestling match. I reminded them both that roughhousing was a bad idea, but they just laughed and kept at it. Then the 7-year-old, determined to test every boundary, got up, grabbed a stack of his dad's books, and just dropped them one by one, letting them hit the floor with a loud thud. I told him he would be in serious trouble if his parents found out, but he just laughed, saying, "They won't care. They love me." At that point, his cousin knocked over a lamp trying to dodge him, which hit the floor with a loud crash. I was ready to call the parents, but they weren't answering. I ended up just trying to survive the rest of the evening by distracting them with a movie until they finally both fell asleep on the couch. When the parents finally returned late at night, I tried to explain what happened. But instead of getting any sympathy, they just shrugged it off, paid me the bare minimum, and walked me out, saying, "Kids will be kids."